You're watching Truth Talk News.
On May 23, 1933, Congressman Louis T. McFadden brought formal charges against the Board of Governors of the Federal Reserve Bank System, the Controller of the Currency, and the Secretary of the United States Treasury for numerous criminal acts, including but not limited to conspiracy, fraud, unlawful conversion, and treason. However, I'm sure they didn't teach this to you in school, ladies and gentlemen. The petition for articles of impeachment was therefore referred to the Judiciary Committee and has yet to be acted on. So since 1933, the criminal cartel has maintained its vice-like grip upon the sheeple of America. Here are some quotes from Congressman McFadden's remarks to Congress on the congressional record in 1934 about the Federal Reserve Crime Syndicate. Mr. Chairman, we have in this country one of the most corrupt institutions the world has ever known. I refer to the Federal Reserve Board and the Federal Reserve Banks, hereinafter called the Fed. The Fed has cheated the government of these United States and the people of the United States out of enough money to pay the nation's debt. The depredations and iniquities of the Fed has cost enough money to pay the national debt several times over. This evil institution has impoverished and ruined the people of these United States, has bankrupted itself, and has practically bankrupted our government. It has done this through the defects of the law under which it operates, through the maladministration of that law by the Fed, and through the corrupt practices of the money-eyed vultures who control it. Some people think that the Federal Reserve Banks are United States government institutions. They are private monopolies which prey upon the people of these United States for the benefit of themselves and their foreign customers, foreign and domestic speculators and swindlers, and rich predatory moneylenders. In that dark crew of financial pirates, there are those who would cut a man's throat to get a dollar out of his pocket. There are those who send money into states to buy votes to control our legislatures. There are those who maintain international propaganda for the purpose of deceiving us into granting of new concessions, which will permit them to cover up their past misdeeds and set again in motion their gigantic train of crime. These 12 private credit monopolies were deceitfully and disloyally foisted upon this country by the bankers who came here from Europe and repaid us our hospitality by undermining our American institutions. Those bankers took money out of this country to finance Japan in a war against Russia. They created a reign of terror in Russia with our money in order to help that war along. They instigated the separate peace between Germany and Russia and thus drove a wedge between the Allies in World War. They financed Trotsky's passage from New York to Russia so that he might assist in the destruction of the Russian Empire. They fomented and instigated the Russian Revolution and placed a large fund of American dollars at Trotsky's disposal in one of their branch banks in Sweden, so that through him Russian homes might be thoroughly broken up and Russian children flung far and wide from their natural protectors. They have since begun breaking up American homes and the dispersal of American children. Mr. Chairman, there should be no partisanship in matters concerning banking and currency affairs in this country, and I do not speak with any. In 1912, the National Monetary Association, under the chairmanship of the late Senator Nelson W. Aldrich, made a report and presented a vicious bill called the National Reserve Association Bill. This bill is usually spoken of as the Aldrich Bill. Senator Aldrich did not write the Aldrich Bill. He was the tool, if not the accomplice, of the European bankers who for nearly 20 years had been scheming to set up a central bank in this country, and who, in 1912, had spent and were continuing to spend vast sums of money to accomplish their purpose. We were opposed to the Aldrich plan for a central bank. The men who ruled the Democratic Party then promised the people that if they were returned to power, there would be no central bank established here while they held the reins of government. 13 months later, that promise was broken, and the Wilson administration, under the tutelage of those sinister Wall Street figures who stood behind Colonel House, established here in our free country the worm-eaten, monarchical institution of the King's Bank to control us from the top downward and from cradle to the grave. The Federal Reserve Bank destroyed our old and characteristic way of doing business. It discriminated against our one-name commercial paper, the finest in the world, and set up the antiquated two-name paper, which is the present curse of this country, and which wrecked every country which has ever given it scope. It fastened down upon the country the very tyranny from which the framers of the Constitution sought to save us from. When the Second Bank of the United States, founded on the same false principles of those which are here exemplified in the Fed, was hurled out of existence, after that, in 1837, the country was warned against the dangers that might ensue if the predatory interests, after being cast out, should come back in disguise and unite themselves to the executive and through him acquire control of the government. This is what the predatory interests did when they came back in the livery of hypocrisy under the false pretenses obtained the passage of the Fed. The danger that the country was warned against came upon us and is shown in the long train of horrors attendant upon the affairs of the traitorous and dishonest Fed. Look around you when you leave this chamber, and you will see evidences of it on all sides. This is an era of misery, and for the conditions that cause that misery, the Fed are fully liable. This is an era of financed crime, and in the financing of crime, the Fed does not play the part of a disinterested spectator. It has been said that the draftsman who was employed to write the text of the Aldrich Bill had been drawn up by lawyers, of course, by acceptance bankers of European origin in New York. It was a copy, in general a translation of the statutes of the Reichsbank and other European central banks. $500,000 was spent on part of the propaganda organized by these bankers for the purpose of misleading public opinion and giving Congress the impression that there was an overwhelming popular demand for it, and the kind of currency that goes with it, namely an asset currency based on human debts and obligations. That's right, ladies and gentlemen. We are but cattle. Continuing, Dr. H. Parker Willis had been employed by Wall Street and propagandists when the Aldrich measure failed. He obtained employment with Carter Glass to assist in drawing the banking bill for the Wilson administration. He appropriated the text of the Aldrich Bill. There is no secret about it. The text of the Federal Reserve Act was tainted from the first. A few days before the bill came to a vote, Senator Henry Cabot Lodge of Massachusetts wrote to Senator John W. Weeks as follows. New York City, December 17, 1913. My dear Senator Weeks, throughout my public life, I have supported all measures designed to take the government out of the banking business. This bill puts the government into the banking business as never before in our history. It will mean continued shortage of actual money and further extension of credits, for when there is a shortage of money, people have to borrow to their cost. A few days before the Fed passed, Senator Root denounced the Fed as an outrage on our liberties. He predicted, long before we wake up from our dream of prosperity through an inflated currency, our gold, which alone could have kept us from catastrophe, will have vanished, and no rate of interest will tempt it to return. The Fed became law the day before Christmas in the year 1913, almost 100 years ago. And shortly afterwards, the German international bankers, Kuhn, Loeb and Company, sent one of their partners here to run it. The Fed note is essentially unsound. It is the worst currency and the most dangerous that this country has ever known. In 1913, before the Senate Banking and Currency Committee, Mr. Alexander Lassen made the following statement: "The whole scheme of the Fed, with its commercial paper, is an impractical, cumbersome machinery, is simply a cover to secure the privilege of issuing money and to evade payment of as much tax upon circulation as possible, and then control the issue and maintain, instead of reducing, interest rates. It will prove to the advantage of the few and the detriment of the people." Mr. Chairman, when the Fed was passed, the people of these United States did not perceive that a world system was being set up here, which would make the savings of the American school teacher available to a narcotic drug vendor in Acapulco. They did not perceive that these United States was to be lowered to the position of a coolie country, which has nothing but raw materials and heart, that Russia was destined to supply the manpower, and that this country was to supply the financial power to an international superstate, a superstate controlled by international bankers and international industrialists acting together to enslave the world for their own pleasure. The people of these United States are being greatly wronged. They have been driven from their employments. They have been dispossessed from their homes. They have been evicted from their rented quarters. They have lost their children. They have been left to suffer and die for lack of shelter, food, clothing, and medicine. The wealth of these United States and the working capital have been taken away from them and has either been locked in the vaults of certain banks to the great corporations or exported to foreign countries for the benefit of the foreign customers of these banks and corporations. So far as the people of the United States are concerned, the cupboard is bare. It is true that the warehouses and coal yards and grain elevators are full, but they are padlocked, and these great banks and corporations hold the keys. The sack of these United States by the Fed is the greatest crime in history. Mr. Chairman, a serious situation confronts the House of Representatives today. We are trustees of the people, and the rights of the people are being taken away from them. Through the Fed, the people are losing the rights guaranteed to them by the Constitution. Their property has been taken from them without due process of law. Mr. Chairman, common decency requires us to examine the public accounts of government and see what crimes against the public welfare have been committed. What is needed here is a return to the Constitution of the United States. I'm Howard Neiman. Thank you for watching Truth Talk News.